Hello everybody, and it's Vanessa here from thecraftcorner.ie, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a fabric coil basket in collaboration with Zero Waste Maynooth. This is the third in series of workshops that we have been putting on, made available for free to the public as live workshops on Saturday mornings, and then also as these recorded videos as well. Today, I'm going to teach you how to make this fabric coil basket. This one has a little handle on it, and you can make it whatever size you like. The materials are very easy. It's very low in materials, and it's going to be using scraps and fabrics that you have in the house. So let's gather our materials, and we're going to get started. So the materials that you're going to need to make your fabric coil basket are scraps of material. I have a pair of jeans for my longer strips, and then I have loads of small little strips that are going to be perfect to use up for this project. You're also going to need a needle and thread. We're going to be hand sewing this project, and you're going to need your material scissors. Other things that might be handy is having a couple of bulldog clips to hold some of the fabric together. But essentially this project is very low on what materials that you're going to need. So once you've gathered them, let's get started. Now, this is a industrially made fabric coil basket, but the reason I want to show it to you is because anytime I'm looking to make something myself, I'll often look at something that's been made professionally to see, well, how are they making it so that it is surviving for longevity? Now, this has been made using a sewing machine. So you'll see here, there is a zigzag stitch on it, and it's also made using fabric rope. So this is a rope that's been covered in material. We want to use scraps of material, so we're going to make our own rope. And also because we're doing it by hand, we won't be using a zigzag stitch, we're going to use a blanket stitch. But by looking at this, I understand the principle of how it's made, and then I can extrapolate out from there to make my own. The first thing that you need to do is cut long strips of fabric. For this, work on the principle of having an inner core that you wrap in smaller pieces of material. The reason for this is, one, you make it thicker, so you get to this point a lot quicker, because you want to make a basket that's a bit bigger than this one. And the other point is that you'll often have maybe long strips of, say, like a kind of a plainer material, say from jeans or a bedclothes or something, and then you nearly always have the smaller strips are always kind of prettier or more patterned. So this way you can change the design of your fabric coil basket. So put that over to the side for the minute, and we're going to start. So this is a pair of jeans that I fixed many times, and they finally gave up the ghost and got such a big hole in the crotch that I just couldn't repair it. So I'm going to cut as long a piece as possible from this. So I'm going to go right out here. So if you can see here, I'm just cutting out the leg. The black is hard to see on the screen. So I'm cutting out the leg and going right down to get a long strip. Now, this strip, you want to make it between 2 and 3 centimeters wide. Mine normally end up being 2.5, and I'm not too accurate with them, so I kind of like do my first measurement and then I just eyeball it. So I'll show you how I do that. Honestly, after you've done this a few times, you just sort of get to know what it's going to be. So here, I split out that leg. So you see there, I started right at the top because I want to get as long a strip as possible. I'm going to go across here, get as much of it from it as possible. And I'll save those other scraps because we'll be using next week. We're going to be making Christmas decorations, and you'll be able to use some of them, this inner linings for that. So I'm just going to put that off to the side and cut my 2 centimeter strip. So mine normally ends up being about 2.5. So see, I just kind of eyeball it like that. And it's always about 2.5 to 3 centimeters. You don't want it any wider than that because it'll be harder to sew together. You don't want it too thick. Now, sometimes you'll be able to tear the fabric. With jeans, it can be a little bit harder. So I'm just cutting as I go along. So like I say, this inner part, that's kind of the inner part of your rope, you want that to be as long as you can make it, so you don't have too many joints. So what you do is you cut several pieces of this, and this long piece will get us quite far. So I'm just going to start with one of these. And let's have a look at our inner rope. So then we have, so that's our inner rope, and then we're going to have fabric scraps like this. So I would start with, and I'm using, the aim of this is I'm trying to use up all the small little pieces. So I have this bit of, let me see, I have this bit of tie-dyed material here, which I'm going to use. Small bits left over from a project. So again, I'm going to try it. I want to make these as long as possible. So again, cut them about 2.5, 3 centimeters. These ones you can tear. So cut a few of them there like that. Again, see, I'm just eyeballing it. And get a few like that there, torn. Now, any of these little kind of shredded bits, get rid of them quickly. Again, keep those because I'm going to probably use them for stuffing for the Christmas decorations project. Those are too small, so we're not going to use them. So we have our colorful outer parts and our inner part. The next thing you need is thread and a needle. So needle will depend on somewhat on what you're using in terms of your thread. Okay, so I have my needle. Now, if you're using embroidery thread, you won't need to do this, but I'm just going to use an ordinary thread to show you that you can. And I get a really long piece of this, as long as you can without it getting tangled, and I double it up. Make it a little bit stronger. So get a double length. And loop it through, so just get rid of that there. Push it in here, like that. So there's a little loop there, and pull my thread through it. So now I've got a double length here. So again, if you have an embroidery thread or thicker thread, so we need to start at the center here, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a knot, and you do this is the first thing that you do. You make a knot, and it needs to have a tail on it, okay? So just a knot like that. Don't need to tie it too tightly. And then we're going, so then this bit here, this tail, I'm just going to put it inside that there. So then we're going to start going around like this in a coil. So you're going to get your thread, okay, and you're going to go down kind of in the middle of that knot where there is no resistance, okay? So if you look there, see the way it's just in the middle there. So I'm just wrapping it around, bring it down, and we're going to do a blanket stitch. So just pull it so that the tail, now if you find that this is getting tangled, start with a shorter length. I'm just starting with a longer length so I don't have to stop and start. And I'm putting that tail inside there as well, okay? Wrapping it all in. Now we haven't added any color yet because we're just going to get our core part. You could wrap color to start, but this is just easier if you don't. So we're going to do a blanket stitch. You go down, okay? And then this part here, okay, you wrap it around the needle and you pull the needle through. Nice and slowly, okay? So we're going to start going around sort of like the hands of a clock. So you're going to go down, wrap your thread around the needle and pull it through. So it's important as you go that you hold this tightly there to start with, okay? So go down, pull this thread around the needle, okay? And then pull the needle through. Don't try and pull it too fast. You don't want to end up getting a knot. And then you'll see your next piece starting there, okay? Now, if you wanted, I like having the contrast of the white thread against the colorful material, but you can pick whatever thread you want. Down through, wrap it around, pull it nice and tightly. Now, sometimes it wants to go in the same place, and I'm just, for the start, just kind of pull it in place like that. You're trying to get them evenly spaced around. Down through, wrap your thread around, and pull it through. Yeah, just go a bit more there, wrap it around, and pull it through. Now we're starting, see, that's our coil there that we're starting to do. So make sure that you're always going down in the middle. So now that's not my middle anymore. So here's the middle. So I'm going to go down into that, wrap it around, pull it through, and make sure that it's going off over there. Keep this nice and tight, okay? And we're going to do one more before we start putting some material on it. Down, wrap it around, pull it through. So by wrapping that thread around, you're getting what we call a blanket stitch. Pull it nice and tightly. Okay, I might actually just do one more here. Down, wrap the thread around. So the thread's going around the back, coming around the front, and pulling it through. If you need to practice that, do that now. So that's my little core, okay? And now I'm going to start, let's get my scraps of material. I'm going to start wrapping them around, all right? So when you start, I put this at a little angle here, and you're going to start, you want to go at an angle like this, okay? Because you're wrapping, so you're not going like this, you're going like, let me just get that so you can see it like that there, okay? So I'm going to start by putting a little bit in the middle, and then you're going to start wrapping this around, okay? So you're just wrapping it around, but see how it's at an angle so that it is moving forward. And you're making sure as well as you wrap that this is nice and tight too. So wrap it around. So I'll show you how you can secure this in a minute as well. I tend to just hold it, but if you're just starting, it can be a good idea just to have something to secure it, just to stop it unraveling. Okay, so I'm just going to get something to secure that. So if you want, you can use like a little, kind of like a little bulldog clip like that. Just hold it in place. Or you can pop a needle in it as well. Okay, now, so keep this, and as I go, right, see there, it's a little bit loose, you can kind of squish it. I kind of twist it a little bit as I go, okay? So as I go, I twist it a little. Now we're starting our next coil. So I go down, so I'm always going down from the top down, okay? And this time, so this is our inner coil. So when you start the next loop, you're always going into the layer beforehand, okay? Not into the gap, into the layer before. So here is where I'm making my joint. So I'm going into this layer here, not the center anymore, here, okay? You always go into the layer before to make it stronger. So wrap it around and pull it through. Oops. Keep pulling there, like that. Keep it nice and tight. So I'm going down into the layer below, wrap it around, pull it nice and tight. See, I'm pulling it in nice and tightly. That's important, okay? Going down and space out the stitches evenly. Remember that you won't be going into the same stitch again because the circle's getting bigger. So you'll need more stitches. The further you go out, the more stitches you'll be doing because your diameter is getting bigger. So sometimes they'll match up. Oop, don't stab yourself like I just did there. Wrap it around. Oops, and pull it through. So here I'm going to put one in between, wrap it around, and pull it through, down. So wrapping there. So how big you make this coil will determine how big the base of your basket is going to be. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. How big you make this coil will decide how big the base of your basket and the overall size of your basket is going to be. Down, wrap it around. Now, and show you what happens when you get to the end of your thread. So you'll see the thread, you do end up going through it quite quickly. See the length, it gets short quite quickly. So you need to make sure that you don't. So here, this is my layer that I'm going into. And this will be the last bit of this thread. So you need to make sure you've got a bit of length left before you wrap it up. So I'm going to go into this one a second time. Wrap it through like that, just to do a second knot. And then just going to go back. So this top part here, this is going to be the inside of my basket. So I'm just going to go through here, pull my thread through like that, and tie it off like that. And then you're going to rethread your needle. Yeah. So then we're starting again. So I'm going to come up from the bottom. Remember this tail here, right? I'm going to just wrap this tail around. You can tuck it in, wrap it around. I don't mind having extra thread showing, so I'm just going to wrap it around. And then I'm just going to go back down. Remember, it's kind of like you're doing a double knot, okay? Oops, don't let it get caught around there. Okay, so now you're ready to start. So you're going to go down. Just let me get my thread here. Right, down, wrap it around, pull it through. And you'll see the blanket stitch starting to form on the back there. As you go, it'll get clearer as you increase. It's harder to see on the blue actually. And sometimes the threads want to kind of all congregate in the one place. So if they're doing that, you can just kind of pull this thread out to that side, like that. No congregating. So pull it over. Sometimes it can mean that you have your threads too close together as well. Oops. Go down, wrap it around, pull it nice and tightly. Down, wrap around, pull tightly. Now I'm starting to get to the end of this here, so I'm going to show you how you switch to the next bit of material as well. Wrap it around, pull it tightly. Now, so I'm going to take this pin out, get my next bit of material, just make space there. I'm going to join it up. So again, I like to do this little cut here because I just find it makes it a little bit easier to tuck it in like that if you have a point. So you could stitch these, but honestly, I like to keep my life simple. So I just roll them together and they'll wrap around. You might have a little bit of fabric kind of sticking out, but you can wrap it in. The thing. So I'll show you how I do it without the pin. So I just kind of hold this like that in one hand as I go. And I find that I don't actually need to pin it together. It will depend, I think, on how long your fabric strips are. If you had really short fabric strips, you could, then I might recommend just kind of sewing a few of them together, either on the sewing machine or just by sewing by hand, just so that you have a longer kind of outer strip to work with. Because the idea of this project is that you are using all your very, very small strips. Now, so you can also use this project to make all kinds of fabric coils, like say if you wanted to make a coaster or a pot stand, you know, for hot pots. Now that one, I don't have enough fabric left, so I'm just going to do a little double stitch in here. In there, please, thank you. Just do a little double stitch to finish that off. And undo your right. So you keep going like that until you have the diameter of the basket that you want to make. So I'm going on this one. I'll show you how we're going to start building up the sides. Now, very important for your sides that you don't put the coil straight on top because it'll start curving inwards. You need to just kind of put it slightly out. So you're going to start sort of tilting the basket, kind of going in. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to join. Got a bit of slant there. Put another little strip in here like that, okay? And we're going to wrap this around like so. The other thing to be careful of is if the fabric has an kind of an outer face and an inner face, that you get the right one on it. I'm just going to wrap that around like that. Also, you want to make sure that this and the end of your coil never end at the same point because it makes it a lot more difficult. Now, so this is my base here. So for this one here, okay, I start to just, you see there, instead of going like that, so instead of going like that, I'm just starting to tilt it slightly. Tilt it up, but don't put it straight on top. But when you go in there, we're just starting to tilt it a little bit. Wrap it around. Still doing your blanket stitch. You're just changing the position just a little bit. So this first round can be a little bit fiddly, but just stick with it. Nice and tightly woven in. Down, wrap it around. Down, wrap around. So I want to make this kind of like a basket shape. I don't want it to be too, I don't want the walls to go up too high. Now I'm coming to the end there, so I need to get a new bit of thread. Just get through there. Make sure that's nice and well wrapped like that. Let's get it. Do my little double knot. Get my thread. Just gonna wrap my thread in there. Get it tucked inside. So you can see there, it's starting to tilt up a little bit. It's not as flat as it was. And that is really, really important that you do not try and put the coil straight on top or it'll start to like curve inwards, okay? Now, coming to the end there. So cut my piece at an angle. Tuck it inside. And then in a minute, I'm going to show you how you join this one on to the next one. It's exactly the same principle as what we're doing here. Just got to make sure that you do a bigger overlap. So let's wrap it around. Get my needle. Wrap it around. Through. Now we need a new strip here. So you can see how long that took us, you know, quite a long way around. So again, I'm going to do a little loop here. This time I'm just going to get right in there. And you could stitch this together if you want to, okay? And then we need a new strip of this. Probably shouldn't have ended this all at the same time, but anyway, it'll be fine. Get it all in there together. Whoops. And start wrapping your outer fabric around the inner one, like so. It's going to be a bit bulky where everything joins up. There we go, you got your new piece of fabric. So that's how you wrap that. I'm just twisting that around there. Keep it all together. Oops. Now, just checking where that one is. So, pulling it over, around. So as you do this first line, remember you're making sure that's sitting slightly on top. You're curling it in just a little bit. Wrap it around, pull it down like that. Continue to do your blanket stitch all the way around, making sure to keep this line at a slight angle from the line below to help keep your basket moving slightly outwards as you build up the layers. Down like that. Okay. So as you can see here, the side of the basket, just pull it up here, is starting to form. You're starting to get that curve going up. And you just keep going until you have a basket the size that you want it to be. So we have built up our side layers of our basket here, and we're coming to the final piece here, and we're going to finish it off. So if you wanted to do a handle at this point, you could do a handle like this. So I'm going to show you how to do a tiny little loop handle on this one. So I'm going to here, we need to secure this with a few stitches, because this is where the handle is going to be joined there. Okay, so on this side, I'm just going to do a little stitch between those two bits of the basket, just to join that in. And then I'm going to go through the other side here, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, just at that point there, where the handle is going to go up. Now, you could do a handle on both sides. I'm just going to show you one handle on one side. You could hang this up by one handle. So this is going to be a small basket, but obviously you can make it bigger by making your base bigger. Okay, now this piece here, I need to sew this in place. There's a few ways you can do it. You could wrap the thread around like this, create like a thread wrapping. Okay, wrap it all the way around like that and just keep going. So you could use like a kind of making like a rope handle. See, like that. So you wrap this tight, twist it, and then so wrap and wrap, and I'll show you what to do. Say you get towards the end, and then do a little stitch in, and another little stitch in like that, like a double stitch in, tighten it off, and then tuck that in through the handle. So you can wrap the stitch around like that. That's a pretty good way to do it. You could also pick a contrasting different color thread. So I'm going to pick a thick green embroidery thread here and wrap that around the basket. So you could pick a different color for the handle than you have for the rest of the basket. So there you can have a handle that's kind of wrapped in thread. Or you can stitch and sew the handle as well. So the wrapping will give you maybe like a neater finish to it. Okay, so just do a little thread, stitch to begin. Oops, don't pull it out though. Do a back stitch, start. Now, and then you can do stitches along where the joints are. Now let's just have a look at what size the handle is. So I'm just going to make it, like I say, I'm making it a small handle. So that's perfectly fine for me there. Also, we're going to be finishing off this bit of fabric as well. Okay, so wrap that around, just get my other piece in there. So you'd always go on a little bit further than the handle because you don't want to end up creating a weak point near where the handle is. Now, so I'm going to bring this down here. Now, the first thing you need to do is stitch that in place, okay? So we're just doing a couple of little stitches here, stitching that in on one side, exactly how you did on the other side, okay? Now, so there we have the handle stitched in place. I'm going to rethread, thread it with the white thread. And the reason I do that is because I don't want, see, this has got red thread or green thread on it for the handle. The rest is white, and I don't want it just suddenly to have green thread there. Make sure this is really nicely wrapped, and we're going to just go to the end of this piece here. Wherever these end together, that's where we're going to end. So continue along doing the back stitch the same as you've done with the rest of the basket. We're running out of thread again. That was not a long enough piece of thread. I need a little bit more. I know I'm going to need more to finish it off, so I'm just going to do an extra little stitch in here, finish that bit off there. Okay, so I have rethreaded my needle, and I'm just going to keep on stitching to get to the end here. Go through there, wrap it around, pull it tight. Now I'm getting to the very end here. So for this part here, this little tail, I'm going to cut that off. So I'm just cutting the inner rope off. We're just going to tuck that in, wrap it around here to have a finished end. Okay, so you're just finishing that end around there. And then here, so you're just going to sew that down to the layer below. Okay, just sew it down to the layer below to finish off your basket. Just make sure it's well attached. To that layer below. So there you have your little fabric coil basket. I really hope you've enjoyed that project and you join us for more projects. Again, this was a workshop in collaboration with Zero Waste Maynooth and myself, Vanessa, from the Craft Corner.